on the Telly. And my name is John Preposterous Ryan, and I'll be sort of facilitating this experiment. I'd like to welcome especially all the Broadsheet commenters and readers. We started the site about 6 years ago, and we didn't sort of factor in the commenters as anything other than perhaps, you know, it didn't really factor into what we were doing, and but the commentators became the site, and they are, I think all of us would agree on the site that they're funnier and more perceptive, and they've certainly educated all of us here. Chomsky Bodger, Olga Cronin, Niall Murphy, Aaron McElaurin, and Mike McGrath-Bryan, who is our producer this evening. And
the entire hype on here.
This is Mike. Mike is in our Cork studio.
Yeah, I just sent all the interns home for the night.
Thank you. And we have a collection of Broadsheet commenters and Broadsheet readers who wrote in and contacted us through the site, and they've been chosen at random, but they're not randomers. They're interesting sort of cross-section of Irish life, but they're all guys. We had no way for to join us tonight, so anyway, we'll rectify that at some later date, or perhaps next Thursday. The object of the show is just to give, I'll shut up in a second, but just to give a platform for voices that either don't get on mainstream TV, radio, or when they do, they're kind of marginalized, or the tone is sort of a heavy sign, I think is the name of the game. Anyway, so what we'd like to do is just offer a platform for many of the stories that we cover on the site. They're very complicated, so we would like to talk to some of the people involved in these, and a lot of anyway, I'll stop babbling. I'm going to introduce you to our panel this evening, and in fact, I'd like them to introduce themselves. They sent us brilliant bios, but I prefer them to, or we'd rather they introduce themselves. So first I'm going to introduce, Neil Curran is going to introduce himself. Neil?
Hey everyone, my name is Neil Curran. I'm a silent reader of Broadsheet and very opinionated about most of the things that are posted, good and bad. When I'm not doing that, I'm an improviser, and I also dabble in the day job in the technology sector.
Thank you, Neil. Marcel Krueger is not Irish born, but he's based in Dundalk. Marcel?
I am indeed, and I think according to the comments, I'm one of the rich expat readers of Broadsheet. That's what I saw today under the Broadsheet on the Telly post. I am indeed a German. I live in Ireland for about 10 years. Traveling between Dundalk and Cologne a lot, and I work as a journalist and writer on the side. So I've written a few things that were reposted kindly by Broadsheet, and I also once found a Cologne hairdresser sign that looks like Ireland, and that made it in the infamous Things That Look Like Ireland book, also kindly published by Broadsheet. That's me.
And that's still available. There's a few copies left, I think, in New Island Press. Thank you. Thanks, Marcel. Johnny. It's hard to describe you, but so I'm going to leave it to you. But your description of yourself is fascinating.
Thanks, John. My name is Johnny Keenan. I'm living in Kilkenny. I have a general interest in all things media-wise. I work in the entertainment industry, more of an artist facilitator, always looking out for the avant-garde and promoting it where possible, which is difficult within the mainstream of the media today in Ireland. So thankfully, Broadsheet is a little bit open-minded, and I'm hoping that I'll meet more minded people, and some of the ones that I can argue with and some of the ones that I can agree with.
Thanks, Johnny. Thank you. And Connor, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Connor. I also wasn't born in Ireland, but don't hold that against me. I'm also in the Broadsheet book, Things That Look Like Ireland. I'm a journalist based in Ranelagh, and yeah, avid Broadsheet reader. We'll see how this goes.
And Mike McGrath-Bryan is by day our music editor, and he's going to be at the controls tonight. And
Yep.
we're going to go, just to sort of kick it off, should we just go through the papers, through tomorrow's papers?
Yep. Yeah, just cue it up there. We're live, folks.
We're live. If you've just joined us, thank you very much for joining us. This is Broadsheet on the Telly, and we have a collection of Broadsheet readers, commenters, real people, and with hopefully much to say on there we are. Yeah, good. Can we see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Neil, would you like to try and put some sense on the this story regarding Maurice McCabe and Maureen O'Sullivan?
God, it's like I fell asleep last night and woke up in 2013. It's just this is just not going away, and I think the Examiner captures the real impact to somebody and his family as a result of all this. I mean, this is just tragic reading it. It's horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Words. Here we are with our police force. That we trust in, that we see from day to day, and it's these same issues are coming up. They haven't gone away. We've had a change in commissioner, and it just feels like, as a member of the public, this is not being dealt with head on. And to see a headline like that, this is playing out horrendously. I mean, oh God, it's just
Yeah.
It makes you angry. Makes you angry reading it.
Marcel, just kind of a foreign view. What are your thoughts?
No, the thing is, it's really interesting. We're talking about this briefly before we started the broadcast. Is that for me personally, the few interactions I had with the guards in the past, they were always positive. So when you're dealing with individual members of the force, I never had any bad experience with it. But I think when you start seeing these things and you start digging a bit deeper, it feels like they're very elusive club in a way. Whenever somebody starts coming out and threatens that, and as in the case here, from the inside, I think they can be really overprotective, or whatever you want to call it, of their own internal structures. So this really, for me as an outsider, as I said, with only positive interactions with the guards, that's really interesting to see as well.
Yeah. Johnny?
Yeah, I've a healthy disrespect for the guards. I don't think they've done anything to prove to me otherwise down through the years. It starts with the Ryan and Murphy report, I think, where I kind of really looked at it in relation to who exactly are the cops protecting, because they seem to have been colluding with, I wouldn't say colluding, that's probably a strong word, but they were mute in relation to priests and politicians to be able to tell them to waddle on and nothing to see here kind of thing. So, and then you look at in relation to the water meter, taking citizens out for who? Dennis O'Brien. And then the Rossport thing with the Shell to Sea, drinking the whiskey and literally assault an Irish citizen. So, I don't have any high respect for the Gardaí in this country, but as individuals, and I think everyone knows a guard, whether they're related or a friend or a school, someone they knew in school. So everyone nearly knows a guard, and that individually there are great people. And I am very proud to say that Irish guards don't need to carry guns. So there's a lot of reasoning with these guys. You can talk to them and they can talk to you. But I just think that the core group of a gang, which is the higher echelons of the Gardaí, they seem to have their own laws. And then when someone steps outside of that and blows the whistle, like McCabe did, and other whistleblowers, you know, they're lambasted and ostracized, and literally it's us against them kind of thing. And I don't think the interest of fairness and law is something that the higher echelons of the Gardaí practice, and they have a history of not practicing that. So I think this is basically you reap what you sow, and hopefully it'll be turned around again. I think Noreen O'Sullivan is very interesting, just walking around there smiling the whole time. I don't know where she thinks she is, or whether she's just looking forward to heading down the coppers every night. She's odd. I don't know what to make of her, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Connor, we sort of saw on the site, and we felt it on the site that you know, right from the beginning, she was part of the old regime. Noreen O'Sullivan, this is part of the sort of Callanan regime, very much so. In fact, I remember we ran the piece from, I think it was a Justice Committee meeting, and where when Martin Callanan said that the whistleblowers were disgusting. It was clear that she was complicit, part of that. You know, she had that. She totally was supportive of that feeling about him. So right from the start, before she even got the job, you know, she wasn't friendly to whistleblowers. It was clear from that alone, from other situations. So I don't know why she was appointed, frankly. Connor?
Yeah, well, I think somebody has to get appointed. Well, it's just another institution of power in this country that's been rocked by a whistleblower alleging malpractice. It happens all over the world. Amazingly, Ireland has some of the best legal protections for whistleblowers in the EU. Now, you wouldn't think it, but it's actually true. But it's just the same cycle that happens. Whistleblowers come out. I mean, there's much bigger cases in the world. There's actually one developing at the moment in the States about a whistleblower. I don't know whether he got the information out. But yeah, it's tough times for whistleblowers, particularly with this movement, this to the right of governments in Western democracies to clamp down on what media are saying, and particularly on what whistleblowers are saying. It's difficult times.
Yeah, and it has taken a long time, but the truth is sort of coming out. I mean, it'll all come out, presumably. I mean, if there's phone records, they will, you know, help to exonerate her, or commissioner or not. But it's hard to believe that people would sort of. It's hard to believe that people would invent the story about this story, if you know what I mean. I mean, there's a credibility factor there as regards the commissioner's position. Neil,
yeah, I mean, this you know, the word whistleblower, it's been thrown around a lot in a sense as if it's to suggest it's something dirty and naughty. I mean, we shouldn't be we shouldn't know the names of whistleblowers as household names, regardless of whether their allegations are true or not. I mean, going back to Johnny's comment, and maybe it's because I'm an ignorant dub, but my encounters with the Gardaí have been fortunately pleasant. But I'm always reluctant to tarnish any group of people with the same brush, particularly a large one like that. But if there's going to be change and a restoration of credibility, it has to come from the top, and that means drastic changes. Drastic changes need to happen, but not knee-jerk either. I mean, if an investigation has to be completed, it has to be completed, but that change has to come from the top, and we won't see that. I mean, can you imagine, you know, somebody who's young now who desires to join the Gardaí? I mean, I imagine most of us at some stage when we were kids wanted to do that. How has your perception of the organization changed, and, you know, as a result of what's going on? That change has to happen at the top, and innocent until proven guilty, an investigation has to be carried out. But not having a whistleblower as a household name is just unbelievable. And as Connor mentioned as well, I mean, working in the private sector, We have measures and controls in place to ensure the protection of people if something is unearthed. The organization I work for, we have very tight international controls around what we do. We've got, you know, safe places to make calls, and you know, I've sometimes called if I have a query, and that's completely protected. I never worry about my own career or my own future as a result of that. Yet this is, you know, like I say, the name of whistleblower in the paper. The only way to restore that is to change at the top.
Well,
meanwhile,
Maurice McCabe's life is just torn asunder. I can't, as we were saying before the broadcast, that I can't think of a worse smear. We had heard about it ourselves on the site about 3 years ago.
I can think of loads of examples in Ireland of whistleblowers getting absolutely ruined. It happens all the time.
Oh, of course, yeah. I think the gravity of the allegation is so, you know, you could get killed.
Yeah, I mean it's that serious. But I think it's more about repairing and bringing back to the status quo of don't ask any questions and just let the guards do it. Just let us sort it out in-house, which is a real problem, that they're not willing to open up and really let any transparency into the organization. So the public are always going to be skeptical until they're able to open up and show what the problem is, because at the end of the day, I mean, lives are at risk.
There's a way of doing business, and as a Garda, you do your business to the rule of the law, and I think that's why most people join up. So I do respect them all as individuals, but I do think, like with every police force in the country, in the world, there's an element of skullduggery and corruption. Of course there is, and the whistleblowing has been something that's been ongoing. And one man's whistleblower is another woman's squealer. You know, it's kind of like that. The culture within Irish society is, oh no, don't rock the boat, just get on with it, keep your head down and say nothing. So it takes a very brave and courageous person to be a whistleblower. And with the way they're being treated, you'd be thinking, well, you know, I think if every department, at the HSE, for example, there was a few whistleblowers there, I think the health system wouldn't be on its knees the way it is. Other areas as well, like, you know, not just specifically within the Garda force, Garda Síochána, but it seems to be coming back and back again to the Garda Síochána that there is something wrong there.
I was reading last year. I read the Guards, the book by I think Conor Brady, and I got it, and I thought it was going to be a lavish sort of, you know. Because I think, you know, Conor Brady was a Garda review or is related to Guards or whatever. So I just assumed it would be and it was sort of on the back cover. You would think, you know, the glorious, illustrious history of the Guards, but genuinely it seemed to, each chapter was lurching from one sort of awful episode to the next, going back to a chap, William Geary, and the way they were treating whistleblower. I think, I don't want to seem cliche, but I think it might be its fascist roots that are that just have not got away. You know? Sorry, Marcel. I don't want to go to the German just because I'm talking about the fascist roots.
I thought that was fine, yeah.
Nicely served. No, but I think what's really interesting is what both Conor and Neil said is that we have for corporations and financial institutions, or for all the companies that I work for in Ireland, that all came from the financial sector, we've got, you know, the compliance regulations are really high. So everyone's encouraged in these institutions to, you know, if you see any wrongdoings, to report them, to whistleblow. But I don't think that aspect is as strong as, especially in Ireland, whenever it becomes an official institution like the Guards or the Defence Force or whatsoever. So I feel there's like a real strong disconnect between these two areas of whistleblowing, if you want to call it like that.
Conor, you said that we have the best whistleblower legislation in Europe, in Ireland.
Yeah, amazingly so. That's because we've got tiny bit of legislation about whistleblowing and whistleblowing protection, as opposed to most EU countries, which have literally nothing.
But there's very little protection, against if these allegations.
I know. I'm not saying.
No. I mean, is there any? Is there a particular our hatred of the informer culture? Is it hangover from that?
Oh, I'm sure it's well, whistleblowing. I mean, basically, those in power don't want their dirty secrets coming out, and there's been since time immemorial. I mean, whistleblowers have been shunned and worse. So there is no real incentive for any legislature to bring in protection for them. Now there's a tiny little bit happening, and there's a lot of talk about it. And I suppose, in the last 40 years, there's been some great whistleblowers who have made real changes. I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, we all know smoking's bad for you, and that's pretty much from a whistleblower. I mean, what else? I mean, Vietnam, the Panama Papers. I mean, that's Snowden. Let's not even forget about Snowden. Chelsea Manning is out. There's a lot of, there's a lot of whistleblowers out there, but as you can see from the history, they get a terrible time of it, and they have since time immemorial, and they'll continue to, because there's no incentive by any legislature to protect them, because it's in, all you're doing is enabling people to speak out against you with your own hidden dirty secrets.
Yeah.
It's political as well there, Connor, I think, John. Like, who's pushing this? The whistleblowers, who's giving them, helping them out, the likes of Claire Daly, the likes of Nick Wallace, who are essentially left-wing politicians, and who's the establishment? Who are they? Fine Gael, Dana Kinney endorsed Noreen O'Sullivan there tonight from Poland. So it literally is. It's a lot. Who's supporting the whistleblower and who's supporting the keeping down of the whistleblower? And the Kenny and Fine Gael have a habit of saying, "Oh yeah, we do support the whistleblowers," but in actual fact, Claire Daly and the likes of Mick Wallace and other ones, but principally them, I think they've been doing a hell of a lot in relation to, especially within the Garda Síochána, highlighting the foibles, if you like.
Yeah, and you notice that Claire Daly and Mick Wallace aren't in government, but the rest are. So it's the system of power which is trying to keep whistleblowers down, and that works in the private sector as well.
Well, the problem is, I mean, like, where do you go? I mean, for instance, Paul Williams is protected by the guards, as he should be, because he's dealing in that business. But somebody like Gemma O'Doherty often needs protection from the guards themselves. She often feels like there's an intimidation there. Certainly, other journalists have tried to smear Gemma, and the beat goes on. So, even we have found over the stories that we've done, the guards don't come out of it well at all, but they also they never concede or acknowledge any fault at all. So there's no progress at all for the victims of these sort of miscarriages or of justice or whatever. There seems to be it's really anti-humane, I gotta say. Sorry.
Yeah, but Jim O'Doherty there, sorry to be cutting in again, John, but Jim O'Doherty is an amazing journalist in relation to what she has done, highlighting the Mary Boyle situation. Just for your viewers there, Mary Boyle is the longest missing person in Ireland. She went missing in 1975, I think it was.
77.
And she's been fighting tooth and nail to get the cops up there to give evidence and to get the whole thing a little bit more transparent. She has a documentary, and we had it in Kilkenny and had a Q&A. People need to know. She's been recognised in film festivals all around the world where they don't even speak English, and it comes back to Ireland. This is the way that the establishment and the guards actually deal with a situation of a missing person. And Jim O'Doherty is one of the few people Garda Callan's another one, but they're asking real questions, and they're being stonewalled and blocked, and basically it's the guards that are doing it. Who are they doing it for? Is the elephant in the room, really, you know?
Yeah, and often you'll speak to somebody like Cynthia Owen, who's had a sort of diabolical relationship with the guards in Ireland. It's unreal, really, when you look into it. But she can see that individual guards, and certainly guards now at the Dunleary station, they're very, they're kind towards her, and they understand. So maybe there is a generational change, but maybe Noreen O'Sullivan's not part of that generational change. Maybe she's just part of a generation that needs to move on now, I think. Sorry, it wasn't a speech.
Fade to black.
Connor?
Yeah, sorry. Anything else in the news?
When we wrote back to the guys, I was dealing with Connor on Skype, and his only thing was like, well. So I said, okay, this guy's pretty direct. He's like, there's not even a hello or a bye and or leave. Mike, could you put up the papers again, please?
Sure. Give me a second there. You have to bear with me now. There you go.
Okay. Just going back to the Maurice McCabe story. I mean, credit has to be given to the Examiner and Michael Clifford and for getting this out. As I say, about a few years ago, we heard about it, and we heard about it, I think, from Gemma. She was saying that they were trying to smear him about this particular thing, but I didn't realize that it could have been the top brass. It's mystifying, really. So, should we move on? Michelle? Okay. Mike, if you could just put up the Sun again, or just some of the other papers.
Yeah, 2 seconds there. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of stories breaking in the news today. I mean, the Sun there leading with the story of the family of 9 left homeless by a blaze. It's a harrowing story, to say the least.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I got a comment or a message from Maria. Very disappointed to tune into the first live broadsheet and see yet another all-male panel.
Ah.
Would have thought you guys could do better. We just didn't get any women applying to join us, so I would be happy to have any gender. It really doesn't matter, and in fact, any political persuasion, any from any walk of life, any age, over the age of 18. That's it, really. So my apologies, Maria. Olga Cronin also is going to join us from the site. She is in Belfast and on her way back from Belfast. So again, my apologies. Anyway, over to one of these hairy men. Marcel. Marcel?
Yes, are we still on topic of the guards, or are we moving on to another one?
We're going to move on to another topic, but any last sort of thoughts about the Garda situation?
A thing that just came into my head now is that again, from the outsider perspective, when you see all these things and read about that, and I was wondering if you're in a position, we work in a company that doesn't have any infrastructure in place to support whistleblowing, and so I was thinking the first thing I would do is if I find out that something's wrong, is I would go to the guards and just keep seeing these things. I was wondering if people would not think about it twice or 3 or 4 times until they now go and approach them about these things. But just as a side note.
And just a roundtable sort of vote. Should Noreen O'Sullivan step down or step aside?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Johnny?
Not yet, but because I think it's just going to create a vacuum, and you're not going to fill the position with anybody who's going to make any real change at the moment. It's a poison chalice. Anyway.
Another aspect was the
probably why they gave it to a woman as well.
Just on this, but moving on to kind of RTE and their alleged role in orchestrating a kind of a broadcast which painted Morris McCabe in a really bad light, and it was based on the O'Higgins report. We did a transcript today. We didn't put it on the site of the RTE report. They had got the O'Higgins report early, and just reading it, it's a real hatchet job, you know. If you'd read the O'Higgins report, it doesn't really tally, and it's incredibly generous to the guards, really, and the report was very, I thought, terribly unkind to Sergeant McCabe. I suppose it was nothing to what was to happen later, though. Anyway, sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. This is our first live broadcast. By the way, if you've just joined us, this is Broadsheet on the Telly, and it's basically a chat among people every Thursday night at around 11:45 till 1 a.m. And as this is our first night, I'm extremely unused to this, so anyway, I'm relying on the eloquence of our guests. So anyway,
we're a work in progress.
Yeah. So, and Mike, could you just show up the papers again? Sorry.
Yeah. Bear with us momentarily.
Yeah. Does anybody have any view on the RT's position in this, and just by extension of that, the RT bias meme over the last few years, and just RT in general? I think RT.
Yeah. I'm a seasoned activist anyway, John. I go to a fair few protests. See it as my patriotic duty to have a presence on the streets. And the way RTE have a habit of reporting these protests, which are usually about austerity and the water charge and such, it's misinformation the whole time. First casualty of war is the truth. RTE for a long time have been a propagandist tool of the state. Fianna Gael and Fianna Fáil seem to have used them consecutively with their governments, and they're not about the truth. They're about press releases. I seen the RTE ads height at the Gaza invasion in 2014 when they were reading press releases verbatim from the Israeli Defense Force. You know, I thought that was quite serious. But RTE have no the license fee. Forget about it. It's a waste of time. I don't see anything in relation to the avant-garde talent that I'd be looking for as well. You never get on RTE. It's banality. It's washed down. It's the way people listen to 6-1 and Joe Duffy and try to tell you it's news. You know, it is for a certain element of society, but it's not where it's at. Definitely not. I'd have a serious problem with RTE, and I have a serious problem with the money that they're getting from the taxpayer, the license payer, and also advertising. You know, and the BAI are only after in the last few years deciding to regulate them, and I don't even think that they're getting close to it. I've no credence with RTE at all in relation to the truth.
Yeah, well, I think things went very badly wrong as far as I can look back around the time of the Kevin Reynolds or the Father Reynolds libel.
Exactly, and that's what I was thinking when Sergeant McCabe, you know, if there was a Lynch job again, you know, he might have a good case for himself.
Well, I was thinking more in sort of terms of the sort of complexion of the station. We listen to the station we listen to all the radio all the time. All of us when we're transcribing, sort of from about 7 a.m. all day, all the radio. And something changed around after the Reynolds, the lipo thing, which I can explain sort of at a later time with you, but it became the news. They lost a very good news editor, I think, a guy called Ed Mulhall, and they were replaced by firstly an English guy, Kevin Backhurst, and I think there's an American guy, some guy from ABC now. And I actually think that to do that job, you need to understand the nuances of Irish life. You really, with the greatest respect to Marcel, but you do lose. You know, there is something you're missing. I think if you're, particularly it's a very sensitive position like that. So I see them sort of dropping the ball, but I'm not sure. Of course, it's not individual journalists; they're just doing their job. But I think there's a kind of a view that's not Irish enough, or something that's almost too international in terms of the coverage. I also thought, sorry, just to bore you again, I thought the Irish, just to go on to what Johnny was saying, the Irish water protests, if you're ever on one, they were great crack, weren't they, Johnny? Like, they were just great fun.
Great camaraderie, yeah.
And there was thousands and thousands of people. And I don't think there were any arrests or, 150 or 100,000 people that say, okay, let's go by the Garda figures, 4,000 people. And it was just so good-natured. And to see the paltry coverage, but also the kind of very negative coverage, you kind of went, wow, they're actually just regular people. They're like, they're not sort of, they're just your aunt and I just have out for the day, and it wasn't a sinister fringe, basically what I'm trying to.
But even with Apollo House there, you couldn't get any more feel good than that. Activists and artists getting together, the centenary of 1916. Let's do something for the greater good. Put a roof over everyone this Christmas. Even the way Joe Duffy went at that, that was complete RTE bias. Then there was a guy. I was up outside Apollo House before they were asked to leave, and the RTE were fairly well planted there with their satellite van. And John Coleraine, is that right? John Coleraine? Basically looking for the worst possible scenario with Brendan Ogle and the other leaders of the Apollo House movement. But just couldn't take it as what it was. It was a goodwill thing. That was what people were doing. So even the other mainstream media wasn't as ferocious as RTE were against the Apollo House movement. And that was more RTE bias as far as I was concerned.
I think it's this has been a trend with this over the years, and it almost feels sometimes like RTE forgets that we live in a modern era where we've access to a number of different news sources, number of different news outlets, and we can check that. And notwithstanding the fact we're lumbered with the annual license fee, which I don't think anyone enjoys paying, you'd be very foolish to think that the wisest thing to do is look at the one news source and look at RTE. I mean, I like just to slightly offer some level, some independence with it. I do find some of RTE's coverage is great, bar the fact they seem to want to report everything outdoors, no matter what the weather is, no matter what they're covering. But it's foolish just to rely on the one source, with any news outlet. But it often feels like RTE are oblivious to the fact that they're not the only one reporting the news. There's been a lot of stuff that's been blatant, like the water protests were a very obvious one, where you didn't have to be there to get a sense from the photographs that there was larger numbers than were being reported. So in many ways, it's like the comical alley during the Iraq War, we're defeating the infidels as an American tank drives by. So I don't know, it kind of is tongue in cheek when you watch that. You can't take it serious, but when there is a serious matter like Apollo House, it does leave you with a very sour taste. But again, that's the direction from the top.
Yeah, but people like Joe Duffy, when you listen to them, they almost feel threatened by those things, don't they? I mean, as if it's a statement on their salary or something. I don't know what they feel. I mean, for instance, just going back to the Irish water protests, whenever there was one in Dublin, there was usually a lifeline that covered the businesses being affected by the protest. Lengthy kind of items on how they'd have to shut up shop and stuff like that, and they didn't really. I mean, they obviously they did huge business because a lot of people, like Johnny, probably came down to Dublin for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
So
All roads to Dublin.
it seemed very mean spirited, and I thought that coverage across the board didn't reflect the spirit of the people involved in it.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Connor, go on, yeah.
Yeah, I think people don't want to see 50,000 people marching peacefully. People want to see bins on fire. If it bleeds, it leads. So if there's going to be trouble, you're damn sure it's going to be documented and it's going to be blown out of proportion. That's just how protests go. When it comes to RTE, they did get their fingers burnt by the libel case a couple of years ago, and their whole investigative division pretty much got shut down, and they can't really do anything at the moment because of it. Well, it costs them money. It's weird with RTE, it feels like their target audience are over 60 God-fearing pro-lifers. I mean, if you look at any show, I mean, you see that they're afraid to bring any sort of more than any kind of thinking that isn't towards what the silent majority. It's the same with other hot topic issues that are brought up in the Dáil. Nobody wants to talk about the real issues that affect real people. That's off the top of my head. Obviously it's Repeal the 8th. Everybody's afraid to talk about it. I mean, it's a bit disgraceful. It's almost as if there's 4 million priests living in this country. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, just on the Repeal the 8th. I mean, they are being heard. I mean, in a way, more than.
Yeah, but they're not getting heard in RTE as much as they should. I mean, if you go on if you go on Facebook, any kind of online media, you can see there is. Even if you go out in the street, you can see there's a general, amongst young people certainly, there's a general appetite for this discord in the public arena. That's not happening on RTE.
But yet, I mean, it's. I mean, what is more to be said about it? And I mean, of course, apart from sort of the intricacies of any prospective legislation, what more is to be said about the actual? I mean, our positions are so exhausted, aren't they, on the 8th? I mean, everybody is. I shouldn't think I would change my mind, and I'm sure you wouldn't, Connor, and Johnny wouldn't. Like nothing that will be said over the next year and a half will change my mind, I should think. I also feel when we started the site, the pro-life movement were funded by US evangelicals, and there was a lot of exposure about that, and rightly so. The Repeal the 8 movement has been funded by George Soros to a large extent, and I think that is a big concern. The same people who are complaining about, some Baptist church paying for pro-life rallies, also maybe look at the source of the money that's going in to pay for the Repeal the 8 movement. Well, I mean, Connor, I mean, I think Soros is somebody to be worried about. Why is he interested in our abortion laws?
Oh, it's madness. Yeah, it is actually madness. I don't know. People think they have a right to get involved in other people's lives. I don't know where they get that impression from, but apparently they think it's the right thing to do, and they think it's probably down to God or something like that. Who knows? Can't get into somebody's head.
Johnny?
Yeah, well, I think they haven't gone away, you know, the Catholic Church or the Christian fundamentalists, and you know they were really strongly against the gay rights, gay marriage. You know, that was very tight. You know, so they're still around, and they're against repeal the age, same way as the liberal-minded people who would have voted for the yes for equal right marriage would probably vote for yes for the woman to have autonomy over her body, and that's normal way of thinking. The people that don't think like that are the moral arbiters, the people who listen to Joe Duffy, the people who are predominantly Catholic and believe it's the will of God that you know you have an embryo in your womb and it has as much right as the rest of us. And that it's a crazy argument in relation to repeal the age. I don't know where this money is coming from for all these campaigns. I just think that women, thankfully, are a lot more liberated than their mothers were, and they're just not taking it. They're leading with their own selves. I was on one or two of the protests. Great camaraderie again. Like, you know, get your rosaries off my ovaries was a big cry out, and I think that's it. You know, it's repeal the age is just another thing that's going to happen in Irish society, where women will be entitled to have an abortion if they need to, for whatever reason, for the right reasons, obviously. But it's progress. But it doesn't surprise me in relation to the people that are behind these campaigns and funding it. Yeah, it's scary. In fact,
I think the tenor of it is simply there to divide us. I mean, you know, there's no room for moderation. There's no room for any kind of, like, you know, it's sloganeering.
But even then, Kenny didn't have the balls to take it on. You know, he's after putting it to a committee. You know, all of a sudden, just kicking it down the road again. These guys that are behind repeal the 8 are talking about 8th of March being a big day of protest to go on strike because it's International Women's Day. You know,
right?
So that's a big thing for the campaign. You know, just because it's not being talked about in the Oireachtas or in the mainstream media again, particularly RTE, because we're talking about RTE bias. You know, there is a serious amount of movement, and that change is imminent. And I think we don't have to wait for Joe Duffy. We don't have to wait for 6-1 to tell us what's going on. We know what's going on. It's going on in the streets. All the people have to do is it's not going to happen with the.
Sorry, I lost you.
Yeah, sorry, Johnny, you're after breaking up there.
Johnny, you just broke up.
Sorry, people are awake to it. What's going on? That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would be very concerned that of not just Soros's involvement, but the involvement of outsiders in our laws, frankly, and our what, you know, I'm surprised that the pro-choice movement haven't questioned that more and been more rigorous than that. You know, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I travel a fair bit, and this is always the shameful thing that comes up in conversation when I'm abroad. I think this is going to be quite a messy thing because, you know, getting this on the agenda with the government has been such a task. And as Johnny mentioned, you know, we have this citizens' assembly thing now, which just feels like a further delay or some way that if they decide something that the government isn't pleased with, they don't have to take responsibility for. But it just, I don't know, this is going to be messy and ugly because there's a part of me wondering, well, is this going to be a straight black and white, you know, abortion is legal on demand, or will it be something in between because of the way this has been approached? I think we're going to be talking about this for a long time. You know, with a marriage equality, that felt like a more straightforward thing. You're either for it or against it, but abortion is just a bigger topic. And, you know, you do talk to people who may not on public forums talk their views, but in private will say, well, yeah, I support abortion in all circumstances, except when it's on demand. You know, and there's plenty of people who do, certainly that I've spoken to, that feel like that. And I just think this is going to be very messy, and it's going to be ugly. And, you know, you're talking about the people who fund it. There's so many, I wasn't actually aware of that, but there's just so many pieces to this that, you know, this is a long journey we have ahead of us.
Yeah, and it may not go their way. I mean, it may not go their way. I mean, it may not go. It may not be repealed because of this. Because I really feel that very strongly that they're driving. Whatever's behind this is it's got the tone wrong. You know.
But maybe time will tell.
You probably disagree with me, but having been through Spuck in the 80s and just, I'm sure Johnny remembers that. You know, we need to have this debate, but we really need to set out some sort of ground rules about, you know, labeling people murderers and or you know Jesus freaks or whatever. You know, I would politely suggest.
There is an element of militancy with the Repeal the AIDS.
I'd just like to point out that we are the 6 guys and we're talking about a topic which, you know, we should just nip that in the bud before we start talking about militancy. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just in relation to, as there is for the pro-life, there's a militant aspect of it, as there is with the pro-choice. So obviously it is all about the women's autonomy over their body, but in order for that life to be created, a man needs to be involved somewhere along the line. So I think that's kind of lost in relation to having a conversation. And as I said from the outset, I would be pro-choice, and but some people are very angry about anyone outside of themselves having an opinion. In my experience, because I like to get informed from every aspect of the story, that's some of it. But once, as you said, John, the debate needs to happen, and not with 100 people from in the Kinney's make-up committee. A bigger thing, and this is where RTE can come back into itself. Having regular debates and having different voices and different situations, because it's something that they've never done, but they have to catch up with the times, because every day of the week, so people aren't that concerned about what RTE does or say anymore.
Yeah, we had a commentator called ABM. I don't know if you remember him on the site. I think he was actually 3 people, and it turned out in the end. And he was every single story about the church, he was supportive of the church, but he would sometimes raise some interesting points. I mean, you just felt that there was a kind of a liberal tyranny, and I say that sort of kind of lightheartedly. There just seemed to be too much of the right-onness. You know, you almost wished for John Waters to come in and just sort of say the unsayable. You know, I joke, but
I believe the official term is liberal darkness. And to wit, if anybody wants some entertaining reading after the show is finished, look up liberaldarkness.com. It is incredibly biting. Again, not to point out satire agreeing with one political wing, but it's just incredibly well written.
Okay. I think how's this going, by the way? How do you feel? Is this a comfortable format? Do you think this could work? Do people tune in every week? Or?
6 white guys talking about abortion in Ireland.
Yeah. We're going to have to vote on it, so we might as well talk about it.
Yeah. Marcel?
I think I'm providing the outsider perspective here tonight, and I'm also a hairy guy. But I'm often surprised, and I remember that especially with the case of the poor woman Savita in 2012 in Galway, the lady who died, and I'm often surprised how difficult it is in all areas of society to talk about this. And I remember, I think back then it was also the case about the doctors not being able to action on it because they were literally in a legal gray zone because they couldn't actually help the woman. And I'm often surprised that this still happens, you know, that there isn't any clear jurisdiction on these things. That's, for me, it's like, it's fine to have a discussion on a very high level about faith and what your personal opinion is. But then when it comes down to not being able to provide medical support to a woman who's dying, then it's like, I think, how is that possible?
There is actually judicial ruling on this. It just hasn't been turned into legislature if you go back to the X case from the 90s.
Yeah. Anyway, let's. Should we move on to another topic?
My favorite thing, my favorite sign at the Women's March after Trump was a protest sign that said, if you could incorporate a uterus, conservatives would look to deregulate it.
Right. Well, I firmly believe I'm pro-choice, but I firmly believe that if men, if it was a man's predicament, there would be a clinic next to every betting shop in Ireland. I think I don't think men would put up with what women have put up with here for more than a day or two. That's my feeling on the subject. Okay, Mike.
Yep. Just kind of listening to the range of opinions here. I think one thing that we kind of established early out is that, for the next year or so, any kind of pitched debate is not going to be listened to, because a lot of people have their minds made up already. Myself, I fall very much on the pro-choice end, and very definitely I think that it is a woman's right to choose what she does with her body. Introducing the language of on-demand makes it sound like a consumer service. I mean, it's not fucking Netflix. Nobody is there to judge what anybody feels that they have to take the procedure for. So certainly I'm in favor of repealing the John has a point in that, it's a very emotive topic, very difficult to try and moderate, simply because, the battle is so pitched. The ideologies are so different, and they represent two completely different sides of society. So I don't understand the reluctance to approach it in a moderatory capacity, simply because the two sides of it are so at pitch with one another. By that same token, if you're RTE or one of the other major broadcasters, and the demand for balance is there, obviously, shall we say that, public opinion on the matter isn't necessarily 50-50. But you kind of need to look at
the RTE in particular has to give 50% to both sides of the story, according to the AI. And that was apparent during the marriage equality referendum, where it was the same. Well, let's call them militants who were rolled out on every opportunity as a mouthpiece, when, as the referendum showed, the vast majority of the Irish public fell on one side. And I think RTE is particularly hindered by the BII, the broadcasting rules. And I think all mainstream media are, particularly at the moment. But I mean, again, their attention to balance was ignored during the Maurice McCabe coverage. I mean, it's selective balance.
I think it's very definitely discouraging that balance wasn't taken in that particular case. I think balance in private cases, as opposed to public discussions such as legislation, and in particular issues that affect people's day-to-day lives, such as this. Obviously, it's not that I'm going to say that it's disappointing that balance wasn't taken on in the portrayal of the Maurice McCabe case, but rather that it's chalk and cheese. It's two different situations on two completely different scales. But with that being said, yeah, it's fairly disappointing that the McCabe situation was covered the way it was with RTE. That being said, again, taking it back to the abortion referendum, if I'm in that situation, I still don't know how to take it on as well, because it is an emotive issue. And like the marriage referendum, individual presenters have their own opinions on it, and even the slightest betrayal of one's own opinions on a topic are going to lead to BAI complaints and the resultant hoo-ha. I mean, we saw how many complaints go into the BAI for somebody, for some radio DJ tacitly implying support for the marriage referendum, for a yes vote on the marriage referendum. And we see what kind of stew it got them in. The exact details escape me at the moment, but I mean, it's a rock and a hard place. It probably reflects, again, a newsroom probably torn in half by support or opposition for the 8th Amendment, which could be a generation gap. It could be a cultural gap in terms of rural versus urban. It could be any manner of these. I mean, when John speaks for a need for moderation and discussion, very definitely there does need to be a respectful place for both sides of it to be heard. Perhaps the studio audience isn't necessarily the best, where you have people kind of rooting each other on and so on and so forth. So in conclusion, I mean, I leave it to the floor as to how you reckon that an abortion referendum would be done in the best
Have it
manner.
on the late Valentine's show tomorrow.
Well, I just think when you have a lot of money pumped into. What's that, Johnny?
No, sorry, Connor said have it after the late
Have it
Valentine's.
during.
Or during, yeah.
Yeah, line them up. Now, this one's pro-life. This one, can it work? Send them off. See what happens.
Well, it's 1:45. We've been at this for an hour. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. Can I thank you very much for being the guinea pigs tonight, and I hope you'll come back next week and we'll sort of work out a proper format.
We'll get the gender balance right as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
Also, and whatever suggestions, in fact, if anybody has any suggestions on how to make this better, probably removing me from the anchor role, please just write in Broadsheet.ie. Just mark it Broadsheet on the telly. I'm going to say just goodbye then to Connor, Mikio, Johnny Keenan, Marcel Krueger, and Neil Curran, and Mike McGrath-Bryan, who's our producer, and myself, John Ryan. Thank you, John Preposterous Ryan. Thank you very much for joining us.
Very important that gets in there. Very important that the preposterous plug gets
also, I'd like to say hello to Frilly King, Bertie Blenkinsop, Sheila Larkin, Anne, and all our very lovely commenters and readers. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next Thursday, hopefully. Okay.
Yep.
Take care, man. Thank you.
Have a good one, lads.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we off?